All right, hello, I am here. This is Alva Amaker, Laverne Champion Amaker with Ladies First Sports, coming to you with the Each One, Reach One segment with mentoring in sports. I am speaking with Mr. Mark Corbin, who I've known for a long time. Uh-oh. A long time. When I say long time, it's been over
35 years.
Many years, since the 80s. He's a Central State Marauder.
Yeah, how about that?
He's a Central State Marauder, which I am. If I'm not mistaken, he's a Washingtonian.
Yes, DC all the way.
DC all the way. And Mark was one that I remember when I got on the yard back in 1986 as a freshman. And my boyfriend, which is now my husband, Kenny Amaker, he DC all the way. Okay, I got an echo coming. Where's the echo coming from? Mark was one that I remember when I got on the yard back in we got an echo.
1986. It's actually playing back.
Okay, I'm gonna disregard that.
Okay.
We good now?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I'll just let it record and we'll go from there because I don't know how that echo was coming back. I don't know. You came up to him and said something about, he probably would remember, about being from DC. Being from DC and how it goes and how it goes down, because at that point you're a senior at the time, and so it was about he walks in, he's a pirate. He had to earn the right to be called a marauder. He had to earn the right to be called a marauder. But I want Mark, I want you to go ahead and kind of give yourself your own introduction, because by no means, based on what I know of you, I cannot begin to kind of entail who you are. So go ahead and give me time.
I am Mark Corbin. I'm a Washingtonian through and through. Grew up in Northeast Washington, D.C. Went to Phelps Career Center and played football there for 3 years. Got recruited by Billy Joe. And it's interesting. I know a lot of people don't know this. I get to Central State because Billy Joe's brother, Jimmy Joe, who was the running backs coach, was the roommate of my boss, who I worked for at Athlete's Foot in high school. Because up until then, I had never heard of Central State, and that's how I got to Central State. He got connected. He called Jimmy, told Jimmy. They recruited me. And believe it or not, Central State was the only full scholarship offer that I got to go to school.
Wow. And
so I signed my letter of intent April 14th, out at the I don't know if they still have it. It's the Eastern Board of Officials. I was named the Eastern Board of Officials Offensive Player of the Year. It's the first time somebody from Phelps had ever done that, and so Billy Joe was there, and I signed my letter of intent to go to Central State. I did not get recruited by Howard nor UDC, and and so my thing was, if I ever got a chance to play either one of them, I was going to get them.
I was going to say, I know they regret that move.
Needless to say, didn't play Howard, but I did get UDC. So when I left Central State, I was two-time Kodak All-American. When I left, I was the school's all-time leading rusher, which I am not anymore. Terry Morrow did a great job making that record go away, and but I was I had my number retired. I've been in the Hall of Fame since 2004. And so, now I'm in Philadelphia, reside. I have two sons, about to get married in August, to a Centralian, believe it or not. Ooh. And so I'm in Philadelphia. I work with entrepreneurs to help people who want to get business from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy what I do. And I am now also an ordained reverend. I've been ordained for 2 years, and so I ran from that. I might have broke a lot of tackles, but I couldn't get away from the Lord. And trust me, I tried. And so now I also carry the title of, dad and reverend. And so, but I like the dad title better.
Okay, amen.
So
cool.
that's pretty much.
All right. When you hear the phrase, like say this month, as I've been doing and talking often about the mentoring and sports component, what does that look like to you when the concept of mentoring in sports? Because oftentimes mentoring is always looked at, a child that when looking at children per se, or a youth is oftentimes looked at as someone when they need assistance because of their problem kind of individual. But the concept of mentoring is much broader than that. And that's why I want to kind of come from the perspective of sports, because sports is a bridge that covers all of that. It connects so many pieces. And so when I look at, and so many layers of individuals that are involved in athletics. So when you look at the concept of mentoring in sports and the thought of it, what does that look like or has been in your life?
Well, for me, I've been extremely blessed because two things. I mean, not only do I get to Central State because of a mentoring relationship with, and my boss's name was Herb Lynch. They both went to Morgan State, and so he looked out for me and made sure I got connected with Jimmy. I clearly had to. I earned the scholarship because Billy came and recruited me, and so that was one aspect of the mentoring. But then after my freshman year, Tony Page, who grew up about 3 blocks away from me, who was a 6th-round pick for the New York Jets in 1982, I think it was, 81, 82. And I had never known Tony. I ran into him one day on the street, standing on the corner down by my house. And I mean, in our neighborhood was interesting. I mean, Anthony Jones, who used to play for Georgetown, and Tony was in the neighborhood. And, but Tony then introduced me to Mr. Reginald Ballard, God rest his soul. And they taught me how to play football. And I mean, I had talent, but I didn't know how to play football. And so it was but by the grace of God that I met them. And Tony took me under his wing. Mr. Ballard taught me how to do everything, taught me how to do things properly on the football field. And so for me, mentoring in sports is just that, finding someone or someone finding you and bringing out the best of your ability without having to, and they don't want anything to do but to be able to help you.
Oh, okay. Is that your first recollection, or do you think that recognizing what individuals that a mentoring relationship has been created, is that something that somebody recognizes right then? Or do you think it's something that people look back and be like, that's what it was? Or, that connection that happens, is it, or do you feel like, again, is it an immediate connection, or that the recognition that that's what's happening has happened? Or is it something that, later on in life, they're like, that person, that's what they did for me. I appreciate that. But I didn't, maybe not even had a chance to tell them because I didn't recognize that is what our interaction had actually become.
I would not have described it as a mentoring relationship back then. I didn't recognize it until several years later. When I really recognized it was, after I got assigned as a free agent with the Giants, right? And we are, and again, Tony was a 6th-round pick for the Jets, ward number 49. He was a fullback. And it wasn't until we scrimmaged the Jets in the Meadowlands. And lo and behold, coming down on the punt was my friend. And, I didn't think about it until then that is what had happened. And if I was going to put a title on it. And so, no, I didn't recognize it then. I wouldn't have called it then. I called it that then. I don't think I think the only way I've ever described it is like I did a minute ago, which was Tony and Mr. Ballard taught me how to play football.
Mm-hmm.
And schooled me in some other stuff, but it wasn't until much later that I would have called it a mentoring relationship.
Okay. I would say in my athletic experience, I started playing sports when I was 8. I do not recall any kind of, say, somebody kind of pulling me along. I know this is what I just wanted to do, so I go play with the boys. I play with the girls. There was a ball around, I would go play. But I did, when I did get to Central, which was interesting, that is where I was first kind of guided by someone else. Pam Logan from the girls basketball team, Coach Check, Aree Johnson. She wasn't an athlete, but she was in the administrative offices. So those individuals kind of kept all of the flow going. And so when I look at the journey as far as being an athlete, you always got to think about, how did I get here? How did I get here? And what influences came along. Now, as a parent, when, as you said, you have 2 children, was being an athlete something that you encouraged them to do, or was it something that you said, okay, whatever your heart desires?
No, I didn't encourage them to do it. Them jokers to this day still don't believe I ever played, and which is hilarious to me. But that's okay. I mean, part of it is pulling my leg, because I only have one picture up from college, and but no, I don't even. I'm encouraging. I'm encouraging. I am taxi. I have also been coach. But I give you a perfect example with our 14-year-old. What I did was, I learned about eligibility in college, and I never lost it. But if you lose your eligibility, you can't play. And because Josh is such a big football head, my thing is that we're not going to wait till your first year at Ohio State for you to learn about eligibility. So you're going to have to do your work, do it well, and if you don't, you have to pay the consequences. And so as a parent and as a coach, Josh had to be sat down, and I was the offensive coordinator. Ooh. Josh was the quarterback, and I had to sit Josh down in the daggone playoff game because Josh decided that he wanted to act the fool. And, Mom had always thought that, I really, you just, you want him to play because, and I was like, I care less. At 13, 14, he's smarter than I was at 13, 14, so he don't need to play football. But football was my ticket out. It's not his ticket out. Okay. And so, you had to teach him that lesson that way. And so, no, I didn't call that mentoring. I called it being a good parent. And the funny thing about it was I had one person walk over to me, and he said, I know that had to be the hardest thing in the world to do. I said, it was. I said, but I had to do it. If I don't do it, then, he'll always think he can get a pass, or even if he does get a pass, he'll know it's wrong. And so I figured I'd rather fix it now than have to wait to, y'all had to come get me out at Ohio State for beating my son half to death for messing up.
Did he understand it or appreciate the fact that you looked past his athletic abilities and just became dad? Because oftentimes when parents coach their children, they can't separate the two.
Yeah, Laverne, he did, because I had to tell him, because I told him, I said, they lost because they lost the game by 6 points. And I didn't want to, but it was, I had to tell him. I said, you're not playing cause the team the game. And so, but you didn't play not because you were hurt. You hurt the team because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And so he understands now, and he and his mom, his mom and I, we agree on that you don't cut it, you don't play. And so we don't, and you can have whoever you want call, because I can assure you, most of them have been, don't tell me, well, well, Mr. Corbin, I played before. It's like, dude, really? You can't tell me nothing about eligibility, and you can't tell me nothing about playing. Hell no, he can't play.
I understand that. And then he now recognizes the amount of accountability because when you're an athlete, no matter where you are on the roster, you're accountable to not just yourself, but your team.
Oh yeah,
your team, because everybody brings something to the game. And definitely. When it comes to your coaches, did you have any coaching role models? And anything that anybody or any that you kind of, as when you became a coach, that you kind of pulled from, or was it more internal knowledge and your own disposition that you went from in order to kind of learn your coaching techniques or your coaching styles? Or did you pull from, this is what I liked about this particular coach, and I like that from that particular coach, and you kind of did it all together?
No, I think I'm a conglomerate of all of my coaches. But for me, it goes all the way back to, so growing up in Washington, D.C., we used to live in Northwest, and we lived at 1830 Calvert Street, and we lived at 2630 Adams Mill Road. And so when we lived over there in Northwest, played for the Ontario Lakers was the name of the organization, and he's dead now, but the guy who ran the organization, the Lakers organization, in the park next door to where we grew up, Walter Pierce was his name, and great heart for the community. He made sure that park was always clean. He made sure that we always had. I'll be 55 in April. My brother, I have two brothers, four cousins, and all of us played for the Lakers. So we're between, 55 and 40. All of us played for the Lakers when we were little boys, and almost every little boy in the neighborhood. And so my heart for the community and service came from Walter Pierce. Okay. And so that was the giving back part of it. Now, believe it or not, coming out of DC, Marion Barry, I don't think you had a chance to participate in this, but Marion Barry did. Now, in terms of mentoring, what a lot of people in my age group know, Marion Barry, we had the summer jobs program. Mm-hmm. And with the summer jobs program,
I live in Maryland, so I can't participate officially.
But see, the summer jobs program, a lot of people, and I tell you, I don't know how much time we got, but I'll tell you a story about Marion Barry. So summer jobs program made sure that me and all my friends had jobs every summer. And we were able to have our own money. We were able to go out and buy our own things. And I don't doubt in those years that youth crime probably went down because we were all working every day. Mm-hmm. But, I got lucky probably, I used to do investment banking and investment management. In like 2005, 2006, I was working for my folks. Marion Barry came to our office with a cat who knew who Marion Barry was because he heard all of the bad things.
Right.
And so, but I knew who he was. My mother still has a picture of Marion Barry in the 70s at an event that she keeps in her living room, right? And so Marion Barry had always been a big mentoring part to the kids in DC's life. And so for me, seeing how he made sure that, and that's why people loved him, he always took care of the community, always made sure that he was a part of the DC community. And I remember sitting in a conference room with this dude and Marion Barry, and the dude was rude, and I had to check him because, I went in and I was like, and I still called him Marion Barry because that's who he was. And I was like, I said, Marion Barry, you probably don't remember me and donate, from a can of paint. I said, but I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I'm a direct beneficiary of, it had a heck of an impact and he had to get up and excuse himself. And I get it, grown man, grown proud black man who's been through a lot, and to be sitting here across from this cat who he doesn't know from a can of paint. But haven't had the impact on my life that he did.
Right.
Choked him up. Well, I said, but let me tell you something. I said, you need to have some respect for him, because if you don't know what he's done for us, so you should keep your mouth shut, or you should just pay attention, keep your mouth shut and pay attention to what's going on. Because otherwise you're disrespecting somebody only based on on part of the story.
Right.
And so, so I got Marion Barry, I got Walter Pierce, Marion Barry. My high school coach was Steve Powell. And the thing about Powell had he wasn't a yeller. And so his demeanor was always kind of laid back. He ran my ass to death. We used to have this hill outside of Phelps. And after practice, we used to have to run this hill. And he would always put me 10 yards behind everybody else. And then he'd say, catch him. Like, catch him. And so, so 10 yards behind, and and very rarely, some days, maybe that first one, I get the first one. And after that, start missing out. And he asked me, I went back one day, years later, he asked me whether or not, did he have an impact on my football career? And I said, well, yeah, I was always in shape when I got there. So there was never a question of that. Yeah. Now, the other thing Powell did so before every game, he used to get us in the gym or the locker room, depending if it was a home game, it was usually the gym. If it was an away game, it was usually locker room. And he used to have a boom box, and he would play the theme song from The Wiz. And one of the songs he would play, "Believe in Yourself" from The Wiz. And so even to this day, some days when things get tight, I go, believe in yourself right from the start, believe in the magic that's inside your heart, believe all these things, not because I told you to, but believe in yourself as I believe in you. And that came from that. And so what impact that has had, I took that to Central State. And so, when I finally got my opportunity at Central State, what made me good was, I was in condition. And like I said to you before we started, if you look on the wall behind me, I got stuff hanging on the wall, and motivational stuff hanging on the wall. And but that's what it was. It was the visualization that I learned from Powell. And so I carried that through, and even using now in my martial arts classes with the kids and adults. And then when I get to Billy Joe, Billy Joe to me, we had one conversation, and that one conversation was we were playing North Alabama, and it was he said two things to me that I remember more than anything else. Played one game, I don't even remember the move, but whatever the move was, I made and escaped and got out of bounds. And he said that, I tell you something, you get these coaches, right? And you think that these men don't know anything because you 17, 18 years old and you know everything. And Billy Joe and Lonnie Ford, God rest his soul. And I never used the word indicative until Lonnie Ford at Central State. And that was his word with us. And then, because he would always be like, Corbin, he said, you got to get strong now. If you're not strong, you're not going to be able to make it. And then Billy Joe said that one day, he said, son, you're goddamn phenomenal. Never seen anybody do anything like that. Now, to this day, I don't remember the move. But then that's one thing he said to me. And then the other thing he said was against North Alabama, I got tired, came out the game, dude fumbled the ball. Billy Joe didn't walk over screaming him. I was sitting on the bench. He turned around and walked over to me, and I looked up at him. He said, as long as you play for me, he said, don't you ever get tired again.
Wow.
He turned around and he walked away.
Wow.
And so from that point on, as long as I played for him, I never got tired again. And so, so I do the same thing, with our with the kids that I've coached in football, kids that I've coached and kids that I coach in martial arts now, and even Coach Fisher, and because Coach Fisher had a huge impact in his evenness and the dynamic in which how it's funny. He's one of the few people who you kind of know when people are smart.
Yeah. Okay.
He's one of those cats who was so smart, but you didn't, he ain't wear it on his sleeve. And so that's the thing that I learned from him. I mean, I was not a brilliant student in undergrad. I mean, I think I finished with like a 2.2. Now, when I went and got my master's, I finished with a 3.69, but school was something different then. Yeah. And so, that's what I got from him. Yeah, you can be a jock and still rock it. And nobody needs to know how smart you really are. And so yeah, I am a conglomerate of good coaches. And I'm, I don't have any bad coach stories.
You're very fortunate in that regard then. Very fortunate in that regard. So is there anything else? Or let me ask you this. When a parent decides to put their child, allow them to participate in athletic, it has, you say you're lucky that you don't have any bad coach stories, but then we know the other side that there is a whole lot of horrific coaching stories. What do you think what's the mindset behind, what the expectation is of a parent? What do you think most parents, a majority of parents may want their child to get out of the experience?
I think parents, well, I don't have bad coaching story. I got this is about as bad as it gets for Boy Scouts. I used to be scoutmaster at our church, and I'll never forget, I would never leave until, even when I had assistant scoutmasters, I never went home until the last kid got picked up. And I remember a woman didn't show up. She was 2 hours late picking her son up. And I said, I was like, sis, come on. She's like, I forgot. And so, I said, how you forget your child? Really? And so you know what I mean? I mean, you can forget me, but how you forget your child? And so my thing with parents is that, one, don't leave your kid alone. I mean, I think it's okay to have the expectation that every coach is okay. But, the only reason I got into martial arts, believe it or not, is I was taking Josh. I think I took Josh 3 weeks, and I finally got to the point, I was like, bet, I can lead this joker right here. Mm-hmm. And, because I'd watched everybody, even though it was at the church, and I was and people around there knew me, but I just got to the point where I was comfortable enough to leave him. And then they drugged me on the floor, and I haven't gotten off the floor since. So my thing to parents is, look, don't leave your kids with nobody else. If you can't carve out the time to be with your child where your child participates in sports or something, then don't put them in sports. Don't if you don't have the 2 hours to dedicate to sit there and watch your child practice, don't put them in practice. Now, the great thing about, my ex and I is that when the boys are with her, she sits, she goes. When they're with me and I wasn't coaching, I sit there through the whole practice. And so you have to be, so if you can't work out nothing else between you and whomever, somebody needs to be there to watch that child, because at some point, you're not going to make a game, you're not going to make a whatever. And they at least need to know that you're invested in how well they do. Because, I was talking to a preacher friend of mine tonight, and we were talking about victory. But everybody always thinks about the victory, but nobody learns how to win. And you can't teach a child how to win if you don't show up every day. And so to me, showing up every day begins with going to practice. If you can't carve out the time to dedicate and show your child, well, okay, we're going to win. The victory comes at the end, but the winning starts with showing up at practice. Okay, it's your dad's week. Your dad will be here this week. Okay, it's my week. I'll be here this week. And, regardless of anything else, don't leave your child with somebody else to to cheer them on. I mean, you know, I mean, I grew up in a different time. Huh?
You got to be there. You have to be their biggest cheerleader. They got to know that you are their greatest supporter, and the good, the bad, you know, and you know, again, of course, like you said, commit that time. You know, as a coach myself, you know, that is the hardest part. Sometimes you know, you want to cut that kid whose parent never shows up on time, but we know, again, through athletics, this might be the vehicle that's going to save their life and give them something that can change whatever circumstances it is that is making that parent not be able to be present.
Laverne, I don't get to college. I don't get to Central State without Herb Lynch being a mentor to me, giving me a job. Mm-hmm. And I don't get there without my mother and my mother. Mm. It's four of us, so she couldn't be everywhere at one time. And if I had known what I knew, the one game she came to, I wouldn't have wanted her to come to none of the games because my mother acted out. We played Baloo, and listen. I mean, all of my express, and I love my mother. My mother was able to make one game. I got tackled. I was under the pile, and the only thing I heard after the whistle was this loud, okay, so we need you to stay home. But, you know, that's a good story about my mom because she was that into it. But you can't leave. You know, you can't, if you don't have somebody who's dedicated to your child doing well, then don't leave them. If they ain't related to you, you can't. Don't leave. I said don't leave your child with nobody else.
Well, if you can say this from being a high school athletic administrator, it's weird to me to see, like, we're during Pee Wee League, you got grandma, auntie, and all them, that everybody's at the game for this child, this one child. They might have 6, 7 supporters. They grow up, they get to middle school. Middle school, they might have 3 supporters. They've fallen off. They get to high school, 1, if anybody comes to the game. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing because I'm like, and then the common thing a parent may say is, well, it takes too much time. It's too much time. I said, well, in high school, the only thing that you have to do is show up at game time pretty much, because you don't have to take them to the game because the buses do that. So why are you not here? And never be able to get response, because when you dragging them to practices and dropping them off when they're younger, they may not even want to do it. But since they committed to the game, y'all invested all that time and energy at the point when they're younger, what happens to when they get older? Why do the parents think that at this point, he's 14, 15, I could pull back and not be here for them at this point and be present? They don't want to, it's not a big deal if I come to the game when they're 15, 16 or in the high school years. And that's not true. I said, the main thing I always get from students is like, I wish somebody saw that. Did we even record the game? Maybe I could get some film so I could show it to them, you know? And it's like, it's heartbreaking because sometimes that's all they want is somebody to be there for them. That's from home. Even though, you know, the coaches and everybody else say, you got it, I'm here, anything you need from me, you have it. But they want that look in them stands every now and then to see home.
Every now and then.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Because let me tell you what I found out this year. When Josh went to junior high school, you know, their games are at 3:30. I'm like, yo. Yeah. I'm like, yo, who does that? And so, but you know, I was like, I'm glad I'm glad me and their mom on a rotating basis. But I'm like, I ain't gonna make practice. And the games, and I work an hour and a half outside of Philadelphia. So to get to a 3:30 game, I need to leave work at 2:00. And I'm like, wow, okay, Dad, you in. And I get it here in Philadelphia, you know what that's about. But you know, you can't make every game, but make some game and make a commitment to it. I think that and you know, I think parents mean well, but I think the issue comes down to, you know, timing. I think the issue comes down to, you know, it's hard out here trying to make a living for not only yourself, but to make a living for your kids. Yeah. And I think that but there's got to be a mechanism where you can check in on a reasonably. And so, yeah, I get it. It's tough. I mean, that was the one thing. That's the only thing I miss about Pee Wee football. It didn't start at 6:30, so I could get there on time.
Yeah.
But these high school games start at 3. But I mean, so I understand how difficult it is for a parent. I understand how difficult it is for a coach. I mean, Josh got hurt one game I was there, and I'll tell you that I was glad I was there because in that instance, I probably knew more about what happened than anybody else that was there. Because when he went down, I was running down the bleachers telling him, "Get up, Josh! Get up, Josh! Get up, Josh! Get up, Josh!" And because his coaches froze, because even they knew this could be a problem. And so I got down there. When he got up, I told the guys, the trainer, I said, "You need to take him through the concussion protocol." And he's like, "Well, I started it." I said, "No." I said, "You need to take." I said, "I'm standing here. Why? I know what I'm talking about." And so, he did. But, I mean, I get it. It's hard on a parent. You got to figure out a way to make it work. And I'm quite sure that they're, recruit somebody from the family to go. Mom can't make it, send Uncle Bubba. Uncle Bubba can't make it, and your brother. Somebody got to go. But don't leave your kids out there alone.
Okay. Is there anything you might want to share as, say, closing remarks?
Yeah, that so I'm gonna do a shameless plug.
Okay.
So I just started a podcast called A Shot in the Dark Podcast. It is purely motivational. I just finished episode 6 today, and it's on Anchor. And of course, my name is Mark Corbin. And if you, I don't want to give my number out, but you can get me at markcorbinhome@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send you a link there. And so I got a couple of other things that'll be coming out this year. So, but, if anything, spend some time with your kids, talk to your children. Now being a parent and having walked in those shoes, you know what they're not telling you. And so you got to ask the hard questions, whether you want to or not, and do what my mother did when I never thought she was doing. Toss their room every now and then just to make sure that everything's safe. And show up when they don't expect you to show up. Because, ain't no help coming but from you. And yeah, the Lord will help you, but you rather get there before he does, because he get there, it's going to be a problem. So
not in your hands anymore. Never is, but it's not
right. It ain't right.
It never is.
Hands no more. But if you show up every now and then, give him a lot more reason not to show up when he need to. So, but yeah, spend time with your kids, talk to your kids, talk to the coaches, and sometimes just freak them out. I mean, I used to freak my son's coaches out because I would go to the game and I'd stay on the sideline. I wouldn't say anything, and I'll never forget. The coach was like, "Hey, Mr. Corbin," I said, "Hey." He said, "All the parents up in the stand." I said, "Yeah, I see him." He just shook his head. I'm like, I mean, I hope you didn't think I was gonna go.
Ooh.
But yeah, I see him. I actually opened the gate for a couple of them. I'm cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't coaching. I ain't yelling at Josh. But yeah, I see him. I'm gonna be down there. So don't, sometimes you just gotta show up. You'll find out. People, walk around. People don't know who you are. It'll help your child, and then to help them coaches figure out who you are.
Okay.
So that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop this broadcast right now. Let me stop this part, but hold on, don't go nowhere.